Congresswoman Nan Hayworth joins us, the Republican representing New York's 19th Congressional District on America's Radio News. Congresswoman, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
So happy to be with you. Thanks.
Well, I see the conversation. Mitt Romney has steered it back to talking about debt and spending.
Wisely so. These are issues that affect every single American and generations to come.
You know, there is a frustration, I know, when I talk to people about when they hear about the national debt. They look at $16 trillion. We see the deficit. It's almost a little over $1 trillion every year. We're spending so much more than we take in. And nobody seems willing to say, look, we have to stop. We can't spend this much money, or we have to take in more money. We just can't do this anymore.
Right. And it is a very difficult issue because the tasks that we have before us do affect just about everything the federal government does. That's the nature of it. So how do we take care of the obligations that we must honor, especially to our seniors and our veterans? Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, which helps a lot of needy folks, and our veterans and defense. Those are key things. Not even counting all the other things that government does. How do we make sure that we honor those obligations and grow our economy so that the size of that debt relative to the size of our economy shrinks? And that's really the key over time.
I think it was Senator Simpson said this morning, he said, we're actually almost every dollar we take in goes to the three programs that nobody will dare touch, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, right. And we have to borrow money for everything else, including defense.
Essentially, that's true. That's correct.
Now, obviously, that can't be sustained.
No.
But who's going to make a difference? I've heard the phrase so many times, kicking the can down the road. Well, it seems like we're down the road at this point.
We are, and getting further down the road, and that's the point that Governor Romney was making. We have to do some bold things. And one of the areas that, and it's got to be something that we get broad cooperation for. So one of the areas that I think, especially under President Romney, we could really do very well and that would provide an immediate boost to the economy would be to have substantial tax reform. And there's broad agreement across party lines that this is something we need to do. So I think if we have a president and a Senate and a House aligned after November, we can get that very good thing going, and that would be an immediate help to us.
All right. How much cooperation do you have on that? Because you're going to need everybody on the same page, or at least a majority of people on the same page.
Well, the biggest stumbling block right now is that the Senate leadership, and unfortunately President Obama has expressed the same roadblock over and over again, is that they want to raise taxes. And on the Republican side, the overwhelming sentiment, and correctly so, people like me would say, is that we can't afford to raise taxes. This federal government takes enough. So what we need to do is make that tax code flatter and fairer and stop penalizing the folks who work the hardest and do the most. And let's make it fair so that we're not penalizing certain types of business and doing special favors for others. Let's make everybody eligible to participate, and then we'll really have the kind of boost that we need so that we can look very seriously together at how we make our social safety net secure for the future and how we manage the debt.
Congresswoman, the problem is the word fair is subjective. Everybody has a different definition of it.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the big disagreement is. When I hear elected officials say the word fair, I just want to jump off a building, for goodness sakes.
Oh my, we don't want you to do that.
Well, because I know fair is in the eye of the beholder.
Right. Well, people like me would say that the fairest tax is a flat tax, a postcard tax. Mm-hmm. In an ideal world, if we could do a postcard tax, I think that would be something that, in principle, everybody would say, well, that's equal treatment. Now, we can come close to that, far closer than we are now. And in the budget the House passed back in March, it was proposed that we go toward a system in which we have two levels of much flatter tax with far fewer, really a big reform of all the deductions, exemptions, credits, etc., so that we can lower the overall rates, because our basic tax rates are the highest in the world on our businesses, and we're especially tough on small businesses. Those are the engines of job growth, and if we could lower those overall rates, and the way to do that, of course, is by just completely simplifying the tax code. We would do a lot of good, and that would be fair.
Now with a flat tax, though, I've been talking with people about this for 15 years. The flat tax, so we have a flat tax, and the FICA tax is a flat tax, and it keeps going up and up and up.
Well, the idea would be that we greatly simplify the entirety of the system. And we've got to combine that. I mean, ideally, you combine that with reforms of the federal budget so that we could have, really what we ought to have is a common accounting and a way of making sure that every aspect of what the federal government does is included in our tax structure.
Well, I have friends at the Pentagon who tell me that they joke about the black hole that place has become, because money just simply, billions of dollars, just simply disappears.
Right.
They don't know where it is, and nobody can find it.
Right.
There is so much money that goes through Washington that is just being wasted.
And that is very true, which is why we need to simplify what the federal government does, get the federal government out of areas of the economy where it does not need to interfere. You think, of course, the obvious one, but it's a glaring example and one that we ought to deal with right away, the Department of Energy loan program that has proved disastrous. And that's but one example of, you can look at the federal involvement, unfortunately, in certain education initiatives that are huge and that are burdening our school systems. Look at No Child Left Behind, which has been, unfortunately, a disaster. There are things that we can do together, and I think if we have that alignment, it'll make the job much easier. Right now, we do get resistance, very heavy resistance, especially from the Senate leadership.
Congresswoman, I really don't think you have to worry about Ernie jumping off a building and hurting himself, because there is so much fluffy bureaucracy to break his fall.
Yes, Molly, that's true. Yes.
Okay. Congresswoman
there's a lot of fraud.
Nan Hayworth with us. Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, too.
We'll talk to you again.